Mm.
Hi, everybody. I'm with Mr. Meng Seng. He's the founder and current leader of People's Party, People's Power Party, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Maybe, Mr. Go, would you like to tell us a bit about the party and what it represents to Singaporeans?
People's Power Party, it comes a long way of formation. As you know, I have gone through Workers' Party in the beginning of this century, contested in 2006. Of course, it was a first bastion of fire that we comes together without a clear ideology of what we were doing actually, right? But a Workers' Party is always look at Workers' Party is leftist or socialist,
Yeah.
so it's called ideologically speaking. But along the way, I think with the influx of different people that comes in, political parties in Singapore are like that, especially for opposition parties. People comes in, then they have influx. Everybody have different ideas, right? And ideologically, we are not really in tune, synchronized.
Okay.
But nevertheless, we just want to revive opposition presence
Yes.
in Singapore. That is the only sole aim that we have in the beginning of this century, right? Then after that, after the election, especially some of us, I think most of us have some soul searching. So a lot of us actually left, right? And I thought that was it. I mean, maybe you're not well aware in what happened in the 1999 and 2001. We PAP called a snap election, and back then it was a 911, right? He called a snap election during a crisis period, so he's playing a politics of fear, and opposition is nearly wiped off. And in fact, back then, even before the polls comes in, I actually expected, this is going to be jialat.
Yeah.
From 1991, we have 4 seats, right? 97, we left 2 seats. And what happened if 2001, we have 0 seats? Then opposition parties' presence in parliament will be gone. That was the fear. So I joined Workers' Party on the eve of the polling, on the campaign, not of the campaign. So that was history. So it's a pure single-mindedly want to create the presence there, right? Maintain the presence to help out. But after 2006, when we have a rebranding exercise for the Workers' Party, it was quite successful, as you know. All the wow effect, that all the young people back then, I'm still young, came together and we provide a hope for the movement, and we attracted a lot of people that comes in. But just like any opposition parties, even right now, when you see a new opposition parties that comes in, it will create a hope. A lot of people come in, but it is a good thing as well as a worries, because different people have different ideas and all that.
Yeah.
So when you are you get to know more of each other, you will start to feel that, hey, actually, we are very different.
Okay.
Ideologies are very different.
How much different would you say you are from Workers' Party, PSP?
For example,
yeah.
For example, this was on the record, right? Casino.
Okay.
Before the 2006 election, actually there was a debate about the casino, right? So the new blood, so-called the new blood that comes together, some of us are against, some of us are for, right? I'm those who are against the casino. The casino, building 2 casinos somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And Mr. Loh Teck have put it on record in Parliament that actually in Workers' Party there's no consensus. Right? We are split. So this is actually ideologically is very different. Right? Basically, it's very different. Right? If you really follow a conservative socialist ideological path, you will not go for casino. Casino is something which is a neoliberal capitalist kind of a concept that comes in. So ideologically speaking, I think from then, Workers' Party is actually shifting. The direction is unclear anymore. So I decided, okay, maybe I just step back. I also have difficulties of synchronizing in the way the party is run, right, and how we do engagement to the public. And with a lot of new people joining the party, it is we are overwhelmed. Put it as it. So it's strings are pulling all over the place. I don't like that. It's quite messy. So I left. I said, okay, maybe that's it. I've done my part to kickstart something. And in fact, the numbers that comes in shows that people will sustain the opposition movement. So I see life move on. But in 2007, end of 2007, 2008, beginning of 2008, so Sebastian Teo, the president of the NSP, actually approached me. He says that, hey, come and join me and help me to do the same thing, rebranding of NSP. Well, NSP is not as old as Workers' Party. And ideologically, it is a more centrist, right? But I say it's okay. I'm actually not really far right or far left. I'm actually center left. Right. So I say, why not? Maybe it's good to have a third force. We call it a third force beside Workers' Party and PAP, no? And back then it's SDA, but Cham Sitong was have a stroke, I think twice already back then. So we said, if we want to make sure that the platform is still viable, sustainable in the long run, maybe we need another force, right? To provide a cushion. If anything happens to the Workers' Party, it's always like that. PAP is always like that, right? So I start the rebranding and all that. And actually, things repeated. New people comes in, they have different ideas. Actually, before that group comes in, we already gone through our manifesto this time around, right? And it's quite comprehensive back then. We are our manifesto, but the new group that came in, they have their own ideas of policies and all that. Which some of them I'm okay, but some of the policy directions, I find fundamentally as an economist, it really can't work. So it leads to my leaving. Also, I say, okay, fine. We have a successful rebranding, right? To bring it. That was the target. NSP as the third force. So I say, while the new people comes in, have their own idea and a new energy to do it. I say, okay, why? I just take a step back. I thought that was over, but 2011, after 2001, you have a Aljunied Town Council saga and all that. I think, well, and NSP was actually in flux because of the crash. I think it's expected because you have a new people comes in with the old guards and ideologically they are not synchronized also. So I said, well, this time around, I'm not going to join any party. I will set it right on what I think, what a democracy needs. And that is actually checks and balances. And what constitutes checks and balances is not only in parliamentary debates or parliamentary elections. It's actually institutionalized checks and balances, separation of powers. And this idea is more than a separation of 3 powers. It's actually a separation of 5 powers. And this idea actually comes from Dr. Sun Yat-sen, right, the founder of a new China or modern China. right? Which I see is more complete for a functional democracy to work, instead of just a three power, which is legislative, judiciary, and executive. We need another two where there is
more independent.
The impeaching power of impeachment, right? That means CPIB or the ICAC in Hong Kong, which is independent, supposed to be independent, right? And the other one is actually selection of officials of civil servants. That's our PSC. It should not be under the influence of any politician. It should be independent. So that was the concept. So I say this will be my last. If it doesn't work out, then so be lah. Life goes on, right? So that was the idea I put up. More than an ideological centrist or leftist or rightists. It is a foundation of democracy that I want to see developing in Singapore. That means instead of PAP going through all the controls, you just see what the economists have rated us, the chronism economy. Yeah, we are number 3. I think it's number 3.
Yeah.
What does it actually means? It means that the selection of people that to run this country,
oligarchy,
because is actually corrupt in certain sense, is fueled by cronies or is dysfunction. That is actually what it means when it comes up with a chronism economics status. That means abang ade go and do this, right? You are my
blood relative,
my successor. You know, in the army. Okay, I just step on. You come and take over my place. That is how it happened, and it should not be that. Especially when Singapore have a lot of government-linked companies.
Yep.
So this is what I see my party stands, which will prevent such thing from happening. Okay. And it is for sustainability for Singapore system. No, it's not about corruption anymore. It's about cronyism.
I see. Okay. So I guess ideologically, you wouldn't really disagree with other parties' political sort of economic policies, such as like minimum wage or unemployment benefits and all of like those kind of social support. But maybe your party looks more to creating a democratic view on how these resources are managed, like CPF, for example, right?
Yes. I would say that in general, all the opposition parties are center left. Right? We share minimum wage. We share what we say is even how to deal with CPF. And all that. We share a lot of things, but the difference is in the details. Like HDB also HDB is actually a socialist system, but how it was how it evolves into a very pseudo market capitalism processes. So it's how we are going to deal with it, right? Some of the policies I do not think is viable because it will cause a market crash because we cannot turn back. Once you start socialist policies towards market principles, that means you can buy and sell in the open market.
Yeah.
If you are going to do something drastically, you will crash the market, and a lot of people will suffer because a lot of people take loans. So these are the things that we have our differences, but in general, we still, I think, center left, most of the parties, right? Yeah. But on how a democracy, the foundation, just like Americans are very proud of their amendment, their constitution.
Yep.
Right. Even the British, the parliamentary system, they are very proud of it. Right. But in Singapore, we do not actually have a clear idea what went wrong, if the ruling party actually matters with certain processes. Singaporeans are quite 随便啦，青菜啦, just take it as long as economy is good, they can have a good job. I think this is far lacking in Singapore context.
As for certain budget policies that the government has given out this year, the GST, carbon tax, is there anything that you hardly would support, or would you be in agreement of any of the measures, or are you just totally against all of the sort of things that put in place, including the support to business and individuals, SMEs and such?
No. You either believe in capitalism, the market force, or you don't. Right? So in one way, you are saying that I need money, I tax GST, so that I can actually help the SME. Does it actually make sense? It means you are having two intervention processes. Drawing tax, increasing tax is actually one of the intervention, right? To form a big government, a bigger government. And to give subsidy, so-called, to actually distort the market forces is another intervention. So have anyone actually questioned about it? And the fact that when we see economists give us a high grade of being a crony economist, what does it mean? Right? Nobody actually really understands that. It means that the cronies, those grassroots leaders, like BBM, BBP, are the ones who benefit. Small businessmen like us, we don't. We hardly. So, is that good for Singapore? I do not know. No? Is the transparency of how we carry out and the processes of how these funds are actually given out. In the concept, it sounds good when the government gives SME the money.
Yeah.
But it's only when you try to apply for grants, then you understand how difficult it is for other people, but not the PBM, the grassroots people. So we have to actually question the whole processes, not just the policy direction. Right? So this is something that I'm always talking about. Even before the economists rated us high in the crony economists, I always said we have a crony economist. Right? That's what we're seeing. Like the AIMS, which you know the aims, the aims. The town council saga, the Arjuni town council saga, which I said expose aim. Why would the town council, who owns the software, sell cheaply to this company and lease it back? And this is run by who? The PAP themselves, right? So it's nothing new. It's not corruption, but technically it's not corruption.
Yeah.
But it's cronyism, right? So does it actually benefit Singaporeans at large? How many Singaporeans or how many Singapore businesses will benefit? That is a fundamental question. Nobody have actually done a statistical study about it.
I think there's also because the statistics are very kept within the government sector, and it's very
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. We are not transparent with statistics. The government utilize our money, taxpayers' money, to do a lot of statistical studies, to do a lot of research. But it has never reviewed enough data for us, right, to understand what is going on. Yes. Yeah. So they are actually, in another sense, that they are manipulating resources for their own advantage. Right? Is that right? That is a fundamental question. Right? It is not that we want transparency of data and all that. Right? I mean, if you talk about data like our reserve and all that is very sensitive. What about this data that you have been collecting using taxpayer money? Are you giving us enough data? Right. So we and Singaporeans are very funny. They always say us opposition lack ideas, lack facts to support their policies, but they don't understand one thing, very important thing. When you talk about policy matters, you need data. We are not in a position to have that data.
Yeah.
But the government have already collected. It should share all the data so that we can come together with the same data set. Then we can debate about it. What is the best way forward? I think that will only be good for consensus building within Singapore. How we should do it, what direction we should with data. I'm always a data person, but I'm always dismayed about the data that was released because it's either manipulated or aggregated to suit their own agenda and narrative. Right? Without the raw data, I cannot do anything. I cannot see another perspective. Right? And they are very guarded because they understand that if they release all this data, actually a lot of people can see a lot of different perspectives.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So this is where the separation of powers comes in. Data collection should be part of an independent processes. And the department, last time we call it Department of Statistics, and now it's called what Seng, right? Should review data when it's asked for.
Yeah.
So the Freedom of Information Act is one of the very important legislation that we should have, but PAP is resisting it. Why? Right? So these are the things. Actually, a lot of Singaporeans what information freedom of information is not important. It's not bread and butter, so called. But they don't understand. Without this, I cannot talk about the bread and butter.
Yeah.
We can unlock a lot of data. Right. So a lot of things. I see my role right now as a small party, as an educator, because the population have been so depopularized, depoliticized, that nobody knows what is important anymore. They only knows that when the government give you money, GST vouchers and all that is important to them. But that's not the case. More important is you need people to do the thinking, to do effective policy debates in Parliament, so that we do not, as a small economy and small country, we do not make grave mistakes. And that is actually more important. So it's a sad thing that my life is coming to an end. I mean, my political life is coming to an end. Right? I'm going to pass on my party to the next better player. But I will still carry on to talk about politics. I think everybody can talk about politics.
Yeah.
It is not something that is reserved for politicians.
I agree.
I actually encourage people to talk about politics, even if they disagree with me.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Right? Yeah.
I agree with that freedom of speech as well.
Yeah.
But do you feel that anyone should be able to say anything for society to function? Do you think we should be a free speech absolutist in that sense, or do you think there should be certain restrictions?
It depends on how mature our society is. Right? It's not absolute, but dependent, conditional of how mature the society is about. For example, we have been brought up talking about racial issue are taboo. Religious issue are taboo. Right?
Sex, gender, yes.
Yes, sex, gender also taboo. But when the society evolves, when more people are more educated, right? When more people travel the world more, to understand a lot of perspective other than blind faith, other than blind following. You know? Is it all right for us to talk about the tools without without having the negativity of having this incitement, right? I will raise a very simple example. In a primitive society, when people do not know anything, when they see a person who can light a fire, he's God.
Yeah.
Right? And they start to say that anyone who says that I'm not God actually is a taboo. Right? Because that becomes their religion. They will kill anyone or whack anyone who say this person is not God because he brings fire and control the fire for their use. But when the society evolves, smarter people comes in, right? They say, this is nothing, this is nothing, we can do better than that. Do you accuse him for blasphemy? I mean, it depends on the society, how mature we are, how we have a better perspective. But Singaporeans
Are quite far from that, right?
Quite far from that.
What do you think about people with dangerous views? Do you think they should be allowed to spread ideas and influence without any repercussions?
Now, it is about how we deal with people we feel that is dangerous with dangerous view. If you are going to lock up people with dangerous view, it's called speech crime. You are actually locking up people just because of their thoughts. Right? If you consider a person who believes in the aliens, for example, and the aliens are the god, or the aliens are coming to invade, and you regard him as some dangerous view because he incite fear, panic among the population, do you lock him up? Or do you have reasons to reason it out? And it will result that majority of people will not believe him.
What about people like Amos E, who are pedophiles and who are trying to normalize that having sexual contact with children is acceptable and that we are not evolved as a society to deal with this kind of people yet?
You're right. In that sense, you're right. It's actually a society will have its boundaries, a cultural boundaries, or actually moral boundaries. Right? If we are talking about encourage people to kill each other, right? How do you deal with it? Now, you have to assess how many people will follow him.
Like ISIS, for example. Like ISIS.
MOC,
yeah.
Right? How many people will actually, ISIS, for example, ISIS, right? ISIS, for example, right? To kill for the religion, right? So, in certain society, right? In certain society, that actually, because of the low maturity, low education system, or rather the fundamentalists of the religious fanaticism teaching, people may buy into it.
Very vulnerable, yes, agree.
Very vulnerable. But in our society, there will still be people who actually will believe in it.
Yes.
Right.
I believe that day there was one Bangladeshi worker that was arrested in Singapore because of this as well. Just recently, last week.
Correct. Yeah. But normally Singaporeans are not that extreme, right? But there will be possibility for people to do it.
Definitely, yeah.
So to us, if this is a minority, right, we can actually use more of a moderate reasoning for the public to believe that this is actually not the way to go. Correct? If it fails, well, re-education of a person is actually very difficult. I can tell you, it's very difficult. When your mind is set to certain things, when you cross a certain age, you cannot change your mindset, right? So while as long as he can have that thought, but he doesn't carry through into actions that will actually affect our society or causing harm to our society, it's just a thought.
But I guess the
Right.
problem is quite hard to justify when it is a sort of hint for people to do something, or the influence. Like, for example, if they share an idea, but they don't actually do it. If they say something like, or if I can give you an example, the January 6th inauguration, Donald Trump, he was quite insightful with his words and to his followers, to the point where they actually broke into the Capitol to do all of those things, to kind of like, it was a very dark day for democracy on the day. They tried to overthrow everything and tried to, in their mind, I believe that the whole election was rigged, right? Which was not entirely based on facts at all. So do you not feel that even though Donald Trump didn't specifically ask anyone to do anything, just him spreading the idea that his election was fake and that he would be thrown out of the presidency because of this, would there not be sort of like a cause for action that you need to control?
We have to be very careful here. When a politician goes into an election and he feels that the election is rigged, right? In America, you can say that Donald Trump is incitement of violence, right? But what happened? It happens in places like Myanmar, right? When the Democrats down there say that the election is rigged, if you use the same yardstick, right? Because of the lady who says that the election is rigged, and people go and have a riot and all that, do you think it's justifiable to say that she incites violence?
I think because on her circumstances, it is much more believable. Whereas Donald Trump tried to have a lawsuit and he failed both times in the Supreme Court and he was rejected. Like I think even his lawyer kind of gave up on his case as well.
Well, they actually can have a lawsuit in Myanmar also, but whether you believe the judgment also. So it's still back to perception. You feel that in one place it can be done that, in the other place you don't accept it to be done because of perception that America should be a federal judiciary or a federal system, right? That's your perception.
I would condemn both actions, but then I would be able to understand why in Myanmar they would kind of have, because it's literally a military dictatorship, whereas the US is a supposed democracy. So based on that premise, then I would be able to see like, okay, like his actions were totally wrong and should be condemned for. Like he's sort of dog whistling to his supporters in that sense. There's just, it's quite inexcusable. Like I can't find a good reason why I should be in support of even if he feels that he was raped.
It actually reminds me of a debate that I always have about dictatorship or authoritarian system, right? Singapore is an authoritarian system. But still people voted for PAP. Have anyone said that it cannot be trusted, or if any opposition party member say that election is rigged, believable or unbelievable? That's number one. Right. The other debate I have is actually about China. Right. A lot of people say, "Oh, China is a dictatorship." No, it is put to election, the CCP will lose. But I can tell you, when you go to China, you talk to most of the people, you take a poll, right, secret poll, right? A lot of people actually supported CCP. They wanted that dictatorship, right? For what reasons? It's for actually nationalistics and national pride reason. Because to them is in no other instances in history, China can be so strong. And they believe that it is CCP which have brought them to this stage. Right? But for Democrats like us, we will say, bullshit. Well, they are dictators, they should be the bad guys. And they will be overthrown very easily. Right? But it's not true in China. You see, there's a cultural difference in people's thinking. Right? So even in Myanmar, I would not discount the fact that there are people who supported the military. Why? Because people who wanted stability, right? And people who are neo-Nazis, or rather, I would say that racist against the Muslim. They supported the military to actually victimize the smaller minority groups. But is that the gauge that we use, whether people support or not, to do what is right or wrong? So it is when you go into the in-depth into understanding cultural differences and how culture actually can change, or rather make difference in the belief whether democracy is good or not, is actually quite shocking. Because I have been to China. Of course, they will talk about the corruption they don't like and all that. But when I ask them, do you hate CCP? They tell you straight no. Will you support CCP? They will say yes, in spite of all the corruption. Because to them, the corruption is an individual official's problem. But in terms of the country's status, without CCP, they do not think that they can keep the whole country intact. They will break into pieces. So they are very multidimensional of how we perceive and how very different the ground people will actually think. So, and a lot of people talk about this coming for debates in the internet. They are paid and all that. I can tell you, a lot of them are not paid. They actually did it on their own. Even in Singapore, we have a substantial number of people from China, new citizens or new migrants, economic migrants. We talk to them. They are very proud of CCP. Right? Something that we cannot understand as a person who are so believe in checks and balances, democracy, and we cannot understand it. So yet again, I have to caution, when you place a judgment call who to believe and who not to believe, I think we have to place a context into the cultural setting and the people. Because if you believe the government is for the people, then you must believe what the people thinks, what their people think matters, not us. So right? As for Donald Trump, right? He has his followings, definitely. He has his followings, right? He might think, because we are not on the ground in US to actually understand the electoral processes, right? The mail-in, the system of mail-in voting, and how it can be rigged or gamed. The system of voting, we are not clear. So I would refrain from making judgment about that, because politicians will have their rhetorics. They would say what is beneficial to them. But for us, if we are really interested in the truth, we will have to look at the truth, the matters, and examine whether the whole electoral system, whether it's flawed, with flaws inside. Of course, I'm not supporting Donald Trump. I think it's a good thing that he's being voted out. But to me, it's we have to be very clear. He has his right to claim what he believes, that the election has been rigged. Of course, we will also respect the judges.
Yep.
But the judges are quite politicized also. As you have know how they appoint the federal judges, it depends on whether it's the Democrats or Republican. Very few neutrals. So again, no system is perfect. But as long as we believe that there's enough checks and balances, the institutional separation of power is installed, I think we have to take it as Donald Trump is talking nonsense. But whether he's talking nonsense is an attempt to incite violence for it to happen on the riot, no? That is another matter after all. If you want to link that and say he should be jailed for that, I think that's a bit far off lah.
So
Okay?
even if the lawsuits came back and then it was dismissed by the courts that he had no basis to make this claim and that he was spreading dangerous information, do you not feel that he should be accountable for the things that happened on January 6th, or he should be
You
scot-free?
see, in Singapore, it's the same. When the opposition or activists being charged in court found guilty, right, doesn't mean that we have to believe that he's really guilty.
For the sake of the argument, let's say it is established that he was really just talking off his ass, that he was rigged in this election, and that he was just maybe sulking over his loss to Joe Biden.
Yes,
Do
he can make his okay. Now, a judge can make his judgment. We cannot say he's biased or not, because that will be a contempt of court, right? But for us, we can actually say we disagree with the judgment. Based on what? He still put up his logic. Whether you believe or not, right, that's another matter. But are you really saying that we should actually deprive him of that right of making his view that he disagree with the judgment or disagree with the judges?
I think with his power and influence, he should have been more careful with his words, because it has been not like one time or two times, it has been a couple of tweets and a couple of videos where he was kind of dog whistling to his fan base, saying that we must take actions into our own hands. And there were
yes, okay,
correspondence like that. Where
yes. Well, now
it's very
that's precisely right.
Mm.
If he actually says that, that means he says, "Oh, you must take in your own hands to do something about it," right? That is incitement of violence. But we just say that, go and write to your legislators and all that to complain and all that. That is not an incitement of violence. It depends very well on what he said, right? But if he did not ask people to go and kill people or go for riot, but people actually misinterpret it or take it in their own hands, then it's a very different thing. So in law, in all fairness, in law, if you want to say that he's guilty of something, right, it must have a very direct link, right? But you cannot deprive him of the right to say that he believed the judgment is wrong, right? So in legal terms, that means he still can say the judgment is wrong. He still can say that the judges is wrong, but he cannot say the judge is biased, because that would be a contempt of court. So there's a very clear line where to draw. Whether you think that what he's doing is actually, you can say that what he's doing is wrong, right? But you cannot say that we must use the law to shut him up.
So where would the responsibility lie, in your opinion? Do you think it should be with the individual who is misinterpreting what he's saying, or do you think it's with the person who comes out to say it and spread the ideas? Because the people who were at the riots themselves were saying that this is what Donald Trump told me to do. So how would you kind of put who should be responsible for this and who should be
he said, if a person said Donald Trump tell you to do, but did Donald Trump actually tell you to go and chong the Capitol Hill?
So yeah, that is the there was no
Yeah lah.
specific instruction. So it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
open to interpretation, right?
Yes. So as a judge, when you go to court, the lawyers ask, what exactly did Donald Trump tell you to do, right? And the court will come to a conclusion that actually Donald Trump didn't tell you to chong the Capitol Hill. It is you who took the initiative, right? It's very difficult to actually pinpoint on the responsibility on that, right? And you are the one who actually chong and create trouble and kill people, then you have to be responsible for it, right? So I think Donald Trump is people who are legally trained will use a loophole. They know where the line is drawn, right? They know exactly where the line is drawn. They will never cross the line. But it can be so gray area that he knows that people will actually interpret what he said in certain ways.
Yeah.
Not all, but some people interpret, right? The fanatics. But yet the law cannot touch him. Because law is very specific, what you say,
Yeah.
is what you say. What people think is what people think. You cannot tell people not to think that way.
Correct.
Right.
Which is, I guess, my question, if I could rephrase, is like, I understand that the law kind of is more protective of him in this case rather than to actually penalize anything specific that he said. But do you think there should be certain things that could maybe put in place to curb such things from happening again? Or do you think that anyone should say anything that they want? Any idea is fine. Neo-Nazism, pedophilia can be talked about, can be shared, can be expressed. And people who buy into those ideas, maybe the less educated, who actually believe that, oh yes, we should be a Nazi, we should be racist, blah, blah, blah. Do you think, for ideal society to function, do you not see any like need?
The ideal society to function is for the silent majority to make noise. If somebody have a neo-Nazism idea that keep talking about it, keep spreading it, and those who disagree do not want to come to and debunk it, to go and say, you go against it, say you are wrong, and less people are talking about it, but you let the small minority to actually carry out their so-called spreading this idea, actually, you will come to a breaking point. So in a mature society, people should not keep quiet, right? Of course, the easiest way is actually use a law and just cut it off. But if you do that, there are costs to the society. Because when a government start to enjoy such power, such power will be abused. Right? They can use the same logic again and again, right, to curb. It's just like POFMA,
Yeah.
No, it's just like POFMA. POFMA is supposed to be about the truth, right? That means you want to curb the truth, the people falsehood. You can only say people are not telling the truth if and only if you know the truth, correct?
Yeah.
If you do not know the truth, how will you know what is the fake, the falsehood? A lot of times, position keeps shifting and changing until that you do not even need to explain. You know the truth, but you just say that what I say is the truth, and that is exactly what POFMA is about. And that's exactly what the fact checker are doing, so-called in Facebook. They are supposed to fact check, right? But fact check, you must know the truth first. But they are actually attacking on opinions. They are actually attacking on what people believe. is the truth when nobody knows what the truth. So when you have this little power that you set in, when you enjoy the power is a very addictive thing. When you enjoy the power, it becomes so addictive that you start to manipulate a bit, shifting the position a bit, and you start to shut everybody out. So you must be very careful each and every time that we want to have set a law that says that, okay, if people say this, we lock them out in ISA. Is that the only way? That is not the only way. I do not think that is the only way. Why? If you have a mature society where a lot of most people are actually educated, have a basic education, right? A basic faculty of logic and reasoning, and in fact, a conservative society. When somebody talk rubbish, more people come out and hamtam him, right? That will die off. The danger is when the majority becomes silent, and you don't want to don't bother. He talk rubbish, but I don't bother. I don't want to debunk it, or I don't want to debate. And that is where you allow all these ideas, dangerous ideas, to actually grow. So you have to choose whether you want a vibrant democracy, a vibrant society that actually constantly debate and get consensus, or you want to leave such thing to the power that be, to use whatever power to set any legislation just to shut anyone out, and I don't need to, I just remain silent. No, the government know what to do. So there is a cost. I believe we actually cross the thing. Singaporeans are just, okay, set the law, we will support. Because the majority are mostly silent. Nobody is interested in having a good debate. Nobody have an interest to actually re-enhance our belief, our core values, or what is permissible and what is not permissible. I would rather have a society with people who are just like US. You say Donald Trump talking rubbish, immediately people will come and hunt him. Right? If not Donald Trump is in Singapore, nobody is hunting you. You wait for PAP to actually shut him out. It's a totally different type of social structure that I want. You see, but it's actually a very delicate balance. If I'm in power, I also bo pian, because Singaporeans are too silent. They just let things happen silently. If they bay song, they're also silent. Right? So I'm forced to be like PAP. Okay lah. I just use a big hammer to smash the little fly. And that is exactly what PAP is doing. So there's no right and wrong. Right? Of course, we are in this system, we always think that we must get the government to do something. Actually, we can do a lot of things. We ourselves can do a lot of things by raising our voice, by enhancing our core values through debates, to robust debates, and come to understanding that this is not permissible. And these minorities' extreme views will actually die off from society. Because they know that once they talk, it's not about the secret police will come. You will be hamtam straight away. Right? That's my view. Right? That's how I look at freedom of expression. Yeah.
For things that are sort of more clear-cut, like for example, if someone wants to say 1 + 1 is 3, right? In that case, do you think that they should be both mad?
They should be laughed at, not proper. If it's too silly, you don't even need to proper. Nobody will actually believe it.
Yeah. I guess that's where the danger lies, when something more complicated, where people don't really understand certain things. For example, viruses, COVID,
Yes.
or religion, economics. Bitcoin, for
Yeah.
example, a lot of people have been falling for a lot of Bitcoin scams because people have been
Yes.
misleading about it. So things like that. Do you think that we should actually enforce a certain system where people cannot just, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can just say that they are expert on this or comment or give their prescriptive advice? So not only just to give their opinion, but they say you must buy this or this cure cancer, for example, and then they are selling a fake product, for instance.
Okay. We actually have a system of in terms of health. Okay, you are talking about Bitcoin, that is scam, right? Scam is actually a criminal offense. That means you are talking about falsehood to make money, correct? And the law can deal with that if it's a scam, just like a scam of a fake call and all that. It's no longer about freedom of expression. I put it very clearly, scamming.
But maybe to that person who is selling that product, they truly believe it in themselves. And then he's just saying, I'm just expressing my opinion. Just because there's money involved doesn't mean I'm trying to scam people. But maybe the thing that he's selling, right, is really nonsense. Like he's saying, you buy this rock, you can cure cancer, for example.
Okay.
But he himself really believes it. And he's saying, oh, this is just my opinion. Why are you using a law to shut me down? He can use your argument to back up his sort of position in this case. Don't you think so?
Now, in terms of cure, there is always, as a statistic person, show me the statistics. Very simple. Right? We have built a system of randomized control trial.
Yep.
So-called a science, the tools of science, right? But you make the claim, you show me the data. Very simple. If it's not with that claim, then you do not have data. Okay? Right. This one. But data also have its flaws.
Can be faked, yes.
Because in real life, it's very difficult to have randomized data, fully randomized data. In fact, I would say that whatever data nowadays, when you see people put up and try to make a conclusion out of it, even with data, actually it's fraud. Right? Because by virtue that only randomized controlled trial can actually give you a fuller picture. Right? For real world data, normally it actually involves selection bias. Selection bias means what? For example, if I feel that I'm very weak, right, I should not take the jab, right, for the vaccine, then I will not take because I'm afraid that I will die. Because I see a lot of data that comes in, the real world data, a lot of vaccine injuries. Whether it's really correlated or causation, pure coincidence, correlated or correlated, but I have a belief that this people always gonna already people say, oh, because of your pre-existing condition and all that. I have pre-existing condition. So I do not want to be part of that statistics. So I decided not to take. Right? But when I have infection, by virtue because of my pre-existing condition, I went to the ICU. Because of this selection bias, I base my decision based on my understanding of my own body. Right? I become a statistics to say, oh, you see, I'm vexed, we'll go to ICU. If about 90% of those who refuse to take the jab are people who consider themselves with pre-existing condition. That's why they do not want to take the jab. Would you expect more of these people who are vexed to go to ICU? Natural, because all the dead, all those who have serious illness, serious condition after being infected are those with pre-existing conditions. whether you're vaxxed or unvaxxed, all are pre-existing conditions. So when people try to present the data without giving the context of the data, to say that, oh, actually, in the unvaxxed group, 90% of them have pre-existing condition. Without this context, you come to conclusion, oh, you are unvaxxed, you are more dangerous. That is actually biased, flawed. So even with data, it's not a full thing that you can come to a fair conclusion, you know.
So yeah,
Because randomized trial, randomized control trial is, strictly speaking, it must be done in a very strict form, right? But people are just plucking data from real world data and treat it as just as a randomized data. Just make it look like it's a randomized trial data. To come to that conclusion, I think we must be very careful about that.
so actually you brought stuff that I also want to talk about later on, but if you could go back to about POFMA, and for example, I think yourself, you were also issued one, I think
I
last
issued
year.
3. Okay.
Three,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. One have nothing to do with me. As I said, the first one is someone was talking about vaccine injuries, right? Vaccine injuries. At that point of time, what the PAP believe, whether it's fact or not, is nobody knows, right? He believed that the vaccine is safe, and all those injuries reported are pure coincidence. It's due to the pre-existing condition of those people. You die of heart attack after you take the jab, even the next day or 1 week later, it got nothing to do with the vaccine, right? They can only say that there is no evidence to prove that the death or the injury is caused by the vaccine.
True.
But no evidence to prove doesn't mean that it is not the case. You must be very careful about that, right? So this guy who wrote about all this, to use the world data on vaccine injuries, or how many thousands of people, 100,000 of people have serious injuries and all that, right? He was POMA, I was POMA.
Are you referring to the VAERS in America? Is it that one he was using?
VERS, and not
VERS,
only
right?
VERS, not only VERS, the European have the system also, right? The yellow card system in British, right? As well as the European system have one, there were another reporting system, right? There are many. Now, recently, due to the Freedom of Information Act, right? Thanks to that, FDA in America was forced to present all the documents that was given to them by Pfizer, right? And even Pfizer recognized that there are 1,291 types of side effects of concern after taking the vaccine. This is written by Pfizer, no, not us, not anyone else, right? They come to the conclusion there's a concern. These are the concerns, whole 8 pages, 9 pages of it, right? So I ask you whether the POFMA issue last year still stands.
I have to look at exactly what they are targeting you for, because I'm quite clear on only one of your charge, which was I think you reshared this video on Facebook regarding how the Omicron is a mix between HIV and COVID or something like that.
No, okay. That one, I think I've stated very clearly, that is my speculation, right? That is my belief. I didn't say it's a fact. The fact is only that there are reports that says that Omicron evolved because of HIV patient, because they are immunocompromised. And they suspect, not only me suspect, they suspect that it was Omicron was happened in the HIV immunocompromised individuals. That is why you have so many mutations within a short period of time. Right? My only I would say I add on that could it be possible if there was a combination? Because mutation can happen in two ways, right? It owns mutation or it recombine with other viruses, or even similar viruses with similar genetically similar. That's what we are seeing the Delta cron, which is a Delta virus variant, the Omicron, they combine, become a Delta cron. That is called recombination, right?
But don't you think that there's like a coronavirus family sort of extension of itself rather than
Now,
two viruses?
it comes back to the finding that actually this COVID-19 virus actually have a few genes that is actually very similar to HIV genes, right? That was actually very early in 2020. It was actually stated by the Nobel Prize winner, right? He stated that actually the reason why he said that he suspect this virus is from the lab is because this virus contains HIV genes. I think 4 or 5 of them, similar genes in it, right? That is why he believed that it comes from a lab, because he believes that this type of combination, this type of structure cannot happen in nature. That was his reasoning, but nobody knows the truth. Of course, he was hammed by a lot of people that say rubbish. It cannot come from a lab and all that. Okay, so nobody actually really knows what this COVID-19 comes about, how it comes about actually, right? There is still a debate going on, right? Now, I would say that you're right. It is actually too fast to jump into conclusion that it is a combination of a HIV and the Delta virus or any other variants of COVID-19, right? Right. But the recombination, no matter how remote the possibility is, there is still a possibility. Just like we didn't expect Omicron to have so many mutations within such a short period of time. Everybody thought that the COVID-19 will have a slower evolution of mutation due to the check system that it has. That means you actually have a proofreading system. That means if the virus replicate itself, there's something wrong, it will actually correct and hide off. Right? That was a proofreading system. But nobody expect Omicron to have such a massive mutation within such a short period of time. No? And still, we do not know why that happens, except that because they suspect it's in the immune compromised patient, like HIV patient, that is possible. That was a reason given. Right? There are a few reports that comes in. Right? So for me, if that is unknown yet, we really do not know what happened. But most probably I'm wrong. Right? I mean, I stand corrected. Right? For that. But on the other aspect of vaccine injuries and the safety and the usefulness of vaccine, right, is a matter of opinion on how you look at it. Right? I think they are more concerned of me saying that the vaccine is useless. Right? Because when you have a national agenda of vaccine a vaccination agenda. You want to get 100% vaccinated, right? And now booster, right? To say the vaccine is useless is actually quite diverging to their agenda. It's actually in collision with their narrative. But at the stand now, how many infections do we have? Booster or non-booster? Vax or not unvax? The data is very clear. When you have a vaccine, the most useful vaccine is one that prevents infection and transmission. That's why we want a vaccine.
Right. For me, I think I kind of like disagree with that, because I don't think for the infectious rates, right, for vaccines itself is supposed to reduce it. It's more to kind of curb the symptoms that you're supposed to have.
Okay.
You could say that the efficacy has dropped a lot more from what it was supposed to be at. I think it was quite a high efficacy rate previously. But then the external validity of those results, right, was based on like COVID-19 patients, whereas now it's in 2022. So the virus kind of mutate. They've developed a lot more spike proteins. Like for example, Omicron has about 30
Yes.
over mutations on the spike protein.
Yes.
So if you were to use the same vaccine to compare the efficacy on a different sort of mutated virus, or I mean, obviously it will become less effective, don't you? Even if you have
Okay.
like, yeah.
Okay. I will put the perspective this way. Now Omicron is 90% of the infection, or even 100% in Singapore. So what is the good of the vaccine?
Because it's meant to sort of reduce your symptoms, although it's not very effective at sort of targeting the spike proteins, because the vaccine itself has only 1 out of 9 spike proteins. I'm talking about the Pfizer, I'm not sure about the other Oxford ones. So it's sort of rate of recognizing there's a foreign body in your
Correct. I mean, on the technical part, it's
which
okay.
is also why I think
Understand.
they're making a new vaccine targeting the Omicron one.
Okay.
See. Yeah.
I'll tell you what happens. Right? When the vaccine first came out, the narrative is we will have herd immunity. It will have 50% or 70% vaccinated. That is the narrative. You go and check. That was the narrative. Right? Then any vaccinated person that got infected, they said there is a breakthrough infection. And blah, 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 whatever reason they give. Right? But when the times goes on, as the times goes on, what happened? They find that there are too many breakthrough infections. So they change the narrative to say that, getting infected is okay, right? Because, like what you say, less symptoms, less death, and all that. Correct? Correct?
Yeah.
But later on, when new variant came in, Delta variant, the death rate went up. Right? They still say that, you still lower the chance. Omicron came in, you will look at the data, between the vax and the unvax, as I said, even with a selection bias, right, actually it's closing up. Correct?
Which data
So
set are you looking for this one?
you will look at Singapore data set, right? Or you look at Israel data set, or the UK data set, the Scotland data set, right? You look at it. So when you say the death, right, we found something in common. The death are mostly the elderly or those who are above 50 with pre-existing conditions, regardless of vaccination. And you know what? It was a whole chain that put up the data, right? Like those who are below 50, actually almost no death, no percentage of death. So I want to ask you, regardless of our vaccination status, so why are you pushing everyone to take the vaccine when the death only occurs with people with a pre-existing condition and the elderly? Very simple question, right? Now you are looking at hospitalization, the ICUs. Take a look at Singapore's data. Someone just point out, right? Those who are in ICU, wow, they say, wow, 75% are boosted, where our booster rate is about 70-75%. So is there an advantage at the moment?
Could it not be base rate fallacy, Mr. Go? Like, for example, if there is a huge pool, because now I think the vaccination rate in Singapore is like 95%, 98% of our total population.
Yeah, 90, no, I think 94%.
94. So
Yeah,
with a huger pool or larger pool of people who are vaccinated, is quite common to see more people who are showing in the ICU who are vaccinated, just on the basis that they are vaccinated.
correct. No. Those who are boosted is 75%. But add on who are fully vaccinated, not boosted, is more than that. You see? So by virtue, if you believe in selection bias, those who are unvaccinated is because they have concern about their pre-existing condition. So naturally, they will go to the ICU also. So if we take that into consideration, by roughly you will see what is the one advantage, right? I do not have the full data set. I do not have how many those were boosted or were fully vaccinated are actually with pre-existing condition. I do not have that data. With that data, it's easier to make a fair comparison. But by virtually you look at it, so does it make sense? Right? Now, you talk about, oh, they come out with a new booster, the second booster, so-called. Now, by the time they come out with that, Omicron is all over, is Delta Con. Or the Omicron 2 and Omicron 1 recombine again and become a new Omicron. So I want to ask you, where does it stop?
I don't think it will, because if you see like other vaccine, Hep B, BCG, when we are born, we still take it. For flu also, I just had my annual flu shot. These viruses won't die or won't go away. So it's
Precisely.
just,
You're right. You're right on that. It will not stop if we always think about vaccine, right? But for flu, it's the same. You will always think about using vaccine to control flu. Every year you have to take a shot. But this vaccine, this COVID-19 is even jialat, you know. Every 6 months you have to have a booster, right? Does it really make sense? Okay. With a short period of time for jab, actually it will create more harm to your immune system. This is not what I say, you know, this is actually one of the doctors in Singapore who say, right? Because it's exhaustion you exhaust
ADE.
your ADE, it becomes ADE. Now, if your purpose is to cut down symptoms, cut down hospitalization, is there have any other alternative?
Merc pill.
Or we have to do research lah, right? The Chinese have done their own research. They believe, you don't believe, that's fine, right? But I believe their research because they are more kiasi than us. That's why they have COVID-0 policies, right? It's not 100% proof, but at least it will reduce further the chances of getting seriously ill. So my point is I'm not anti-vax, you know. I've taken my vaccine. If I go to India, I will take my hepatitis vaccine and all that. I'm not anti-vax. But when I
not
look
for
at this,
COVID vax, I guess.
because the mRNA vaccination, first of all, is new technology. Secondly, no long-term data on efficacy and safety. Efficacy, well, we already know, is screwed up every 6 months because the virus mutate faster than the vaccine can produce, right? That's given. It's okay, right? Taking ineffective vaccine is okay, to me. What I'm more concerned is the long-term impact of the vaccine, because nobody have a long-term data. Anyone who tell you that they have long-term data, they're bullshit, right? Especially for a new technology, right? So where does it leads us to? We should actually diversify our effort. If we really find that there's no light at the end of the tunnel of vaccination, and our purpose is not to kill the virus because it's going to live with us, right? So we have to think just like the flu. Some people will prefer to take the vaccine, it's fine, right? But there are people who have their own remedies. So when we come to this stage, come to the realization that vaccine is not going to be a foolproof way, and there are risks of ADE, there are risks of hurting our immune system in the long run if you keep taking jab every 6 months or even 3 months. Then we have to shift. The paradigm have to shift, because if you carry on this way, you are going to lead the 100% or 95% of Singaporeans into some unknown territory, which risks that nobody knows. Even the Britons, the Americans are actually, the Europeans are very careful about it right now, right? So I believe there is no reason for us to stick to vaccination agenda. It is time to actually move on, spend more funds and resources to look for a remedy. We may not so-called kill the virus, but enhance our immune system to deal with the infection, right? I think that it should be the direction that we go in. That is what I believe, because vaccination also aim to boost up your immune system to fight the virus. Yep. Vaccination doesn't give you so-called the cure. It never gives you the cure.
Exactly. So why cannot it be both? Like, why can't I use the vaccine to boost my natural immunity and also take precautions for my own health in regards to physical activity, human
because,
behavior?
As I have said, there's no long-term data of safety.
Same with COVID though, right?
Yeah, true. Right? And the world data, the people are showing that there's so many different type of side effects.
Yeah.
And we should be very careful about it. Last time when I was in, to be frank with you, I was in the pharmaceutical companies doing research, but not this type of research, more on the market research and all that. Whenever we have an interview with a doctor, for example, or nurse or anyone who mentioned that if he takes a certain brand of medication and that some incident happened, we have to take adverse event report. That's how stringent that we took about side effect. But somehow, this COVID, we are throwing all this at the back of our mind. Never mind if you die, it's not the vaccine. What makes you think, what makes you make that claim? By not even understanding the vaccine itself, because nobody really understanding what the vaccine will do to the body. So I'm very, as a data person, I was wow. I said, how can that be? If safety is paramount in any drugs or any medical intervention we call to our health, we have to take every report very seriously, not just brushing them aside like that. It's quite horrible to me.
I think the government does it though, because they actually do cover your medical bills if you have side effects or if you are ill from this vaccine. I know one of my friends who had I think so, a blood clot or something because of the vaccine.
Mhm.
And it was all covered by the government, but it wasn't just very publicized. I think one of the reasons why they do not want to publicize such events is it will kind of deter people from taking or
Now,
lower the confidence.
look at it from another perspective. By not talking about these potential side effects, you are depriving people of making informed choices. Okay? People thought, oh, everything is good and fine. And when some people cannot hit, it's not all people who are affected by the vaccine are taken care of. There are people who are paralyzed or hardly can move. They cannot take that claim. They have to pay their own bills. That is why a lot of people in the Singapore vaccine injury group are so fed up. Right? They, no doubt, they have given to some people, but I don't believe the numbers are so small in vaccine injuries because it's not comparable to the world data. This is science. What happens in Europe, what happens in US, will happen in Singapore by proportion, right? How can you say there's no death from vaccination when there are deaths from vaccination in other places? That's not science. That's not logical. Right? Statistically, it doesn't stand. Right? If a person who believes in data and science, you will have second thought, what is going on? Very simple. Right? So I do not know. I would not say that all the injuries, all the incidents after vaccination are due to vaccines. But the numbers are too massive for me because when they don't take care of that, they make noise in the chat group and all that. And every time I see it, initially I was telling people, make an informed choice. I'm not against. But when the government actually start to deny claims, or even the doctors themselves refuse to sign off that is potential vaccine injuries, right? Then there is a right to tell people that be cautious, right? And I'm not, I do not know if you are not in Singapore, you are not aware that there's another group that monitors ambulances sightings. And the sightings are terrible. It's quite high for a small observers of less than 1,000 people. Every day, 100 sightings, 50 to 100 sightings. It has never, we noticed, I was the first to notice this. Because last time when we drive, hardly see any ambulance. But nowadays, every day, I can see ambulance going on. Sometimes 8 or 9 ambulances in the day while I was driving on the road. What does it mean? Then we come back, we look at the data, then the government were telling us, oh, hospitalization due to COVID-19 is actually 1,000 plus stabilized. So I was asking myself, then where does this ambulance go, cater to?
I think could be other disease or interventions. No, not interventions, sorry, like accidents.
Yeah.
Could be stroke.
Yeah. Yes,
Near
possible.
the if you look at the statistics, every Chinese New Year, our stroke and heart attack rates go quite high. Whether it's because of
No.
food, diet, or anything. I've
No, the highest death
statistic
rate,
on MOH that you can see also. Hold on.
the highest death rate, I'm talking about death rate, the highest death rate in the year is actually December.
Are you talking
Right?
about death rate or ambulance?
Ambulance, I do not know. Okay, ambulance, I do not know. I have not seen the data yet. Right, but it has come to the point that they actually admitted the ambulance call actually increased by 20 to 30% from the
Is that
norm.
because of specifically because of COVID or vaccine related, or does it
Well,
care?
if they are telling us that, if the data shows us that hospitalization for COVID is actually quite stable now, 1,003 to 1,006, very small range. Then where is the excess? Where does the excess come from? Right?
It's hard to make that claim, right? Because it's not.
Yeah, it's hard to make that claim. I'm not making a claim. I'm making an observation. I'm actually making an observation that, in fact, the hospitalization for COVID actually drops recently, right? But we're still seeing ambulance going around, right? It is a strange thing that we cannot explain, but it's an observation that we meet on the roads. Actually, I don't drive often. One day, less than an hour, right? I don't drive often nowadays because unvaxxed, I cannot go anywhere. Right? So it's a strange part, right? Of course, the hospitalization actually increased. So they claim that, oh, it's due to past chronic diseases, who are hospitalized, although they are infected, but it's not due to the infection, but due to their chronic diseases. Okay, that's how you define, you define, that's why your COVID hospitalization actually quite stable, right? And it's the fact that they said, oh, the hospital are still packed, that's why they cannot allow people to go to hospital to visit. Just a week ago, they are making that statement. So where does this come from? These people, I don't know, right? Well, maybe it's dengue fever, maybe other things. We do not know because dengue fever is actually an endemic in Singapore, right? So we do not know what happened. We have to look at the data again about the death because funerals also went up, right? Because people are observing the crematorium booking are always full, and people are observing that funeral wakes are everywhere in Singapore, right? So we have to wait for the data. ICA is supposed to have a data, the quarterly data, right? So we have to explain certain things like excess death. Right?
Earlier you mentioned that, now with the new variant and also cause vaccine or whatever, whatever the cause may be, the infections have been increasing, but the death and the cases of ICU have been decreasing, right? The severe symptoms and the death rate has been decreasing from COVID for the newer variants.
Yes.
So
for the newer, we hopefully will see the trend continue. If the newer variants comes in,
the increase of death rate that's happening now shouldn't be ascribed to the COVID itself, because if you agree that the death rate has been falling from COVID cases because of the newer variants and it become less harmful.
Then from where?
It could be something else, because this is not very controlled for. There's no description of the cause of death.
But if you have noticed recently, there's a lot of reports of sudden death. Right? Chronic death is okay, but sudden death, people go jogging, come back, die. Go walking, also die. Right? And hawkers, famous hawkers only famous hawkers people will talk about it. Hawkers are dying. Right? I've never seen such a high intensity. There are sudden death in the past, no doubt about it. Once a while, we will see people run and die. It was reported. But in recent reports of sudden death is quite a concern. We do not know why people are having heart attack. Sudden death most probably is either heart attack or stroke. Definitely. You go walking, then come out and die. Just be bathe and die. It's weird. So I'm not drawing any conclusion. It's an observation that is of concern. Right? Of course, people are drawing when the booster comes in and how the death comes in. Even in US, there are people who collected data because of insurance company. They are finding that excess death is 49% more for the past year. they are concerned because they have vested interest, because they are paying the insurance for sudden death. Right? That is why the fund, the investor, the famous fund manager, what's his name really? He was predicting the fall of Moderna and Pfizer, right? Because the insurance company is trying to make a case that the vaccine is actually unsafe. And they are going to sue these two companies for that because they are losing my money also. As an insurance company, we go by statistics, right? Each year, what's the death numbers? Then we calculate, then we can make money. That's how insurance works, right? But suddenly they find that they are losing a lot of money because of a sudden spike in death. So they are finding a reason. Well, we have to wait lah. We have to wait. What are the findings in the US? But for me is if I have an alternative and I have doubts on the vaccination, not only the efficacy, but now the safety, especially when the Pfizer documents came out, right? I would actually have a paradigm shift to see how can I improve certain aspect of the immune system of the population so that they will get infected. We will get infected, but we have less symptoms. We have less concern, we have less hospitalization. Instead of every day talking about vaccine, I think that's crazy. Right? You're not thinking in a holistic perspective of the whole situation. That's how I see things, I'm not expert. I'm not trained, but as a person who look at data and a data trend, I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about all these happenings around us. But of course, my family are not vaxxed. We have to suffer the inconvenience, right? But there are families who cannot afford to be unvaxxed, even if they have concerns.
Yeah,
they will lose their jobs.
Yeah,
and I think that is evil. If you promise people that nobody should be forced to be vaxxed, and it's a choice, it's not a mandate, you should not have done that. Right? You're basically pushing people to the cliff and not giving them a choice. That's why I'm against the methodology they use. And after having achieved 94%, 95%, after using such static and pushing for booster more than 70%, we are still not improving. We're still having 7,000, 10,000 infection numbers. And our hospitals are still packed. And there are still people dying. So where does it lead us to? Does it make sense to force young people with strong immunity who hardly have any death for vaccination? Our focus should be on people with pre-existing condition. Right? That we know, by now we should know that the infection will actually affect those with pre-existing condition. And how we can help them to actually increase their immune system other than vaccination. I think that is more focused, and that should be the direction that we should be moving on. I'm not an expert, but purely looking at the data, who dies most are those with pre-existing condition, diabetic especially.
From what I see in terms of why the government is trying to do this is for a few things. Like one would be the relative risk. I would see it as they are more concerned of the virus rather than the side effects of the vaccines. And the second one would be, for instance, the prioritization on kids and on the youth to get the vaccines is to ensure that there's no more super spreader events. So for example, yes, it doesn't, if you're to compare a 75-year-old versus someone like me who's in my 20s, obviously we have to prioritize the 75-year-old, or there's much more rationale or reason to give the vaccine to the 75-year-old than to me. But for me, I'm a living, contributing member of society. If I go out to work, if I go into many places, I might get the vaccine. And in Singapore, there's a lot of houses which are, stay in with multiple family members. So I could spread it to my father, I could spread it to my grandfather. So even though, yes, my elderly population may have been vaccinated, but if I am not vaccinated and I get the vaccine, and if I get the virus, I am still very much liable to get very sick or extend my incubation period with the virus that may affect my parents or may affect my grandparents. And I
Okay.
think for the last point is mostly in sort of this kind of thinking of alternatives, right? I don't really see how, if let's say we don't use certain vaccines or certain mask mandates to force or encourage people to take care or be more cautious with their behavior, the other alternative to me is just lock everybody down, shut off everybody from leaving their house, because
No.
how would
Okay,
you go about managing such a
Nicholas. Okay,
yeah.
what you say here makes sense if and only if the vaccine works to stop transmission and infection.
But it's not the point of the
You
vaccine
see,
though.
no, wait. You are talking about you do not want to bring the virus back to your house and infect your older people, members of your family.
Yeah.
But the vaccine cannot fulfill that,
True, but it
right?
reduces your incubation period with the virus. So for instance, if I am
Yes and no.
asymptomatic,
Yes and
right,
no.
with the COVID virus, and I'm coughing and sneezing everywhere, the vaccine helps
Okay,
me to become more non-symptomatic. So you could see
no.
how it wouldn't spread as much.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay, okay.
Okay, this is my personal experience. It might not be indicative, but from a small samples that I have, okay, I have people who are vaccinated, booster, and unvaxxed who have infection, right? Some are unvaxxed because of their pre-existing condition, right? They do have bad cough, sore throat, right? But they normally recovers after 6 or 7 days, right? There are certain unvaxxed people, if they apply the early treatment, all these are applied early treatment, so there's no differential, right? 1 day of cough, and that's it. But they will only test negative on the 4th day, right? Some of the vax and boosted also can recover, right, on the 4th day if they take the early treatment. But for those who didn't take the early treatment, what happened was they will test negative on the 6th day, right? But they continue to cough. It is strange. So it is to what I see is it all depends on your endowment, your body endowment of immune system. If your immune system is good, regardless of whether you're vaxxed or not, you'll be hardly be affected by Omicron. And now stands, the Delta is more serious, right? The Delta is more serious. Omicron and now it stands. So whether vaccine actually reduce your incubation period, right? We have no data to establish that yet. Of course, there are certain initial findings and all that, but that is in conclusion. In conclusion, as I said, random controlled trial is very hard to come by, right? Because a lot of factors affect whether you take treatment, what type of treatment you take, early intervention, and all that, right? But I have to say that whether you are vaxxed or unvaxxed, early treatment actually helps. The most early that you get your treatment, the better it is, right? I have people who have serious pre-existing condition, allergies, very serious allergies, right? Right. They take slightly unvax. After early treatment, they take slightly longer, 6 days or 7 days to test negative, but they're well. None of the unvaxxed that have taken early treatment have lasted more than 10 days, right? However, there are cases where people who are fully vaxxed. I'm not very sure whether booster or not. After 10 days, 20 days, they still tested positive. They still have symptom of cough and phlegm. I would not say whether the vaccine problem or not. I would say that it's because of their own immune system is actually already very weak, right? From that point of time. So it's very difficult to conclude on that. I can only conclude that early treatment is important. Vaccination, whether it do anything bad or good, I cannot conclude. Right? That's my. There's even one who said that he had pre-existing condition. He was taking vitamins before, gassy, because you know that you have pre-existing condition. You take zinc, you take vitamin C, and other supplements. He was surprised that he was all right because of he knows that he's a pre-existing condition. So I would not say it's foolproof, but it does help if you have, even you will take supplements like vitamin D, vitamin C, or zinc before that, right? It does help, right? But whether vaccination, whether it will be better for them to take vaccine or not, there's no if, right? There's no if, because that is what they experience. I can only say that even when you're unvaxxed, if you really boost your immune system, keep it top peak, you can actually write out this infection.
I agree. Like I think
Yeah.
I think what we could agree on, taking care of your health, making sure you got enough
Yes.
nutrition, physical
Yeah.
activity. The
Yes.
things that you presented to me sounds, I mean, I'm not like casting doubt or disagreeing with your findings, but they seem to be quite case study or sort of
Yes.
observational works
Yeah,
that
observational,
you
because
see.
because I do not have the resources to do a random control trial, right? Most of my so-called the research, people will not say it's a research. Actually, reading a lot of different type of research reports coming in, pro and against. There's no consensus in the scientific world about vaccination, but even ivermectin, okay, is in the flux. But I have to agree that early intervention is better than no intervention, right? Whether you are vaccinated or not, right? So we have got, as far as I'm concerned, in Singapore, already 94% been vaxxed, and out of this, 70% have been boosted. Vaccination or not is not even an issue to me anymore. People have made their choice, right? And of course, whatever comes, whether good or bad, we have to manage, okay? But now is how are we going to face in this phase when, regardless of vaccine or not, you will still get infected? How do we minimize hospitalization, regardless of vaccination, in the ICU and death? That's why I'm promoting early intervention. We have to go into that direction, right? Although Omicron is mild, so-called mild, but it's not that mild. If you experience the sore throat without medication, you are going to suffer a lot.
Pneumonia,
right?
fatigue.
Yeah, pneumonia. Yeah, yeah. So I believe we can agree to disagree to a certain extent about the vaccine, but that is actually past. To us to move forward, I think we have to actually think of ways to actually strengthen the majority of Singaporeans, especially those older people, their immune system. And we have to come to take the experiences of other people. Right? Vitamin D is important because most of the cases of death or serious ICU, they found that they are lack in two things. One, vitamin D, low in the vitamin D, and the other one is zinc. Right. So maybe it's a good idea to actually keep some certain supplement like this for the older people, because by virtue when they are old and during COVID, you don't want them to go out. They don't have sunshine.
Yeah.
There will be a deficiency in their vitamin D. So I think that is important, right? That's how I view it. That's why when my early treatment protocol comes out, it's not in Taiwan, you know. I've thought through what I have read, what are deficient. There might not be any correlation or any causation, but the correlation is so obvious,
Strong.
so strong. Then we take precaution. We take vitamin D lah. Since the doctor says that all of these serious illness are short in vitamin D, then we supplement it. But old people, you cannot expect them every morning go out to get sunshine, right?
Yeah.
Right? Right. So it might not be a perfect thing, but is the best thing I can come up with at this moment. Of course, the Chinese medication, MOH also got something to say about it, right? But the fact that in the very beginning, they are interested in that study, the commission has studied on the Lianhua Qingwen, it shows that they themselves actually felt it might help, although it doesn't materialize to a full study. So what? As long as it doesn't kill people. And the market, if you believe in market forces, the market speak the truth. More and more people are getting it, and there's a serious shortage about it every week, right? Because when people take it and they find it good, they will talk about it and they will spread, right? If they take it and it's bad, well, people will talk bad about it and nobody will buy. That's market forces, right? So far so good. I'm happy to say that if it is in shortage, it means that it works for majority of people. No? So if you ask me, how did I come to that conclusion to sell like this one can cure this? I don't believe it can cure. I only believe that it can help to boost the immune system, help it to fight and prevent serious illness. That's all. No? To cure a virus, infection is not easy. Nobody can cure flu.
No.
Even flu up to now, nobody can cure. No? So I think we can safely say that we agree on the immune system, boosting our immune system. While we disagree, I will disagree to use a vaccine because it involves a bit of risk to me. I may be wrong, but that's what the data that I see that is showing to me, right? So but if I have alternative, I will use it. That's why I'm confident to be unvaxxed.
Yep.
I also gassy one.
That is also one of the things I want to ask you. Like we can respectfully disagree on the data that we've seen. Obviously, that was one of the things I was going to be afraid of. So it's going to be like my study versus your study. But how I formed my own conclusions and my own informed opinion was that through reading all those kind of placebo-controlled RCTs that may, kind of led me to what I've seen with the results and so on. But moving on from all of those, controversial opinions about the vaccine and whether it works, whether it doesn't, blah, blah, blah. I think also people will want to know, like, how is it like living with all these restrictions that is placed upon you? Because I know, regardless of what you view the vaccine as, whether it works or the science around it, you are still human, you still have feelings. People come and criticize you. They will say a lot of nasty things about you. They will you can't even go out in public or into shopping malls unless you need to see your doctor or special reason. You're barred from workplace. So how is this impacting you and your family? And moving forward, what do you think, or how do you think you can manage this living in Singapore?
It's true. Okay. First of all, I'm a simple man. I hardly shop. Even before the COVID, going to shopping mall is only for dining mostly. I don't do window shopping. So, of course, my daughter and my wife will be affected more lah, because women's they like to window shop, but not me. You know, so I'm the impact on me is quite minimal in that sense. Going to shopping mall, right? And luckily I'm driving, so I do not take this MRT. I have to go one round just to get into MRT and all those nonsense. I think that's okay for me, right? I'm blessed in that sense. Not everybody can afford that, right? So the only inconvenience I think is to have gatherings with my friends.
Yeah.
Like I want to have certain meetings with certain people outside. I cannot. Right. I can only invite them on void deck or come to my place or to their place. Right. That is the only inconvenience. Right. Apart from that, I think criticism, even POFMA, well, POFMA is annoying.
Yes.
Right. Because as I said, at that instance, even right now, nobody actually know the truth.
Is the lawsuit,
whether it's just I mean,
is there a lawsuit going on regarding the POFMA?
well, they're still figuring out whether they want to sue me or not. Right. So I'm okay. No, I'll take it in my stride. I'm prepared for it. Right. But it's annoying because POFMA is not meant for that. Shomugan already said very obvious during the POFMA debate when the legislation is about facts. It's not about against opinions, against belief. It's not about that. So as I said, at any point of time right now, we don't the amount of data, even with the amount of data or research or understanding of this virus and vaccines, right? We still know very little about it, to be very frank. Whether it's pure correlation or causation, or how much is due to how much is just pure correlation, then coincidence, or how much of that adverse events are causation, nobody knows. I wouldn't say all the listed 1,291 adverse events are sure due to the vaccine. No, even I don't believe that. But how much of that is direct causation, nobody actually knows, right? But with that understanding, why would you POFMA? There are reasons for me to believe that we should be concerned about the safety of the vaccine. First, is a new technology. Secondly, you do not have long-term data. And thirdly, the real-world data seems to indicate something, right? It must indicate something. And right now, we know that even Pfizer themselves are concerned about the 9 pages of adverse event. Some of that I don't even know what the hell is this, you know? So why would you want to POFMA me on that? It's an informed choice of what we do not know. We must know what we know, and we must know what we do not know in order to make an informed choice, right? And of course, the most annoying thing is you are forcing people to take the vaccine by giving the choice that no vax, no job. Going shopping more or not, a lot of people don't really care.
Yep.
They can live with it. I can live with it. I believe a lot of people can live with it. But to the extent of no job, I think that's too much. Quite often. Like, that's actually infringement of our human rights. What is a human rights? The right to live. The right to earn a living, decent living to live. You're infringing people's human rights. Right? Humans, we have a right to live. We are not doing something evil. Right? So that is my take about all this. For other people who are criticizing me and all that, I got a thick hide. Okay. I never took at heart because deep down in me, I say to myself, well, whether I'm right or wrong, only time will tell. It is only purely on my judgment, out of concern of public concern, public health concern, that I have this judgment, and not only I have this concern, I also have a perspective of how to deal with the pandemic. As I told you, I will not force everybody to take the vaccine, but I will strongly encourage people to take care of their body immune system, especially those who are vulnerable, pre-existing condition, elderly. If they need to take a vaccine, it's worthwhile for them to take the risk. The risk benefit is higher for them. But for other people, it doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense. Now we know that the vaccine have higher risk for the young people like you, myocarditis, well, and all that. But you have minimal risk of getting death or seriously ill like the older elderly people. So why would you want to take a disproportionate higher risk of the vaccine while have least risk of death or serious illness for the infection? It doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense. And what I'm fed up with is the way the data are misrepresented, right? Because the context of the data are not fully explored. We are not given the context of the data, the full data, the breakdowns, instead of an aggregation. Why? It is part of a public education. As I said, how a society mature is that we must have people who understand how to read data properly, so that we will not be misled by other people in future. We understand how statistics are presented, proper presentation of statistics, instead of cherry pick and piece up just for the agenda.
Would you say then the MOH is lying?
I will not say it's lying.
Mm.
I will say that he have an agenda to fulfill.
Or misleading the public, do you think?
I will not say even misleading. I will say that he's trying his best to put up data presentation to justify his agenda. Rightfully or wrongfully, nobody knows. But I will say that their agenda, they believe that their agenda is for the public good. That's what their belief. I cannot dispute that. Right? I do not. Some people say they are evil, and I don't believe they're evil. Right? They believe, they strongly believe that vaccination, everyone is the way to go. But I disagree, because there are risks. Right? There are instances where their misrepresentation of data is intellectually dishonest. Like some of the studies, for example, some of the studies on children. The studies doesn't talk about efficacy or the danger of children. It's just to do a comparative study between different countries, right? On the children situation. You have not drawn any conclusion on the efficacy. For the pregnant woman, the data is not complete. It's not a randomized trial, but they try to present it like a randomized trial. One will suffer. We are ready to, we know it. We are ready to take the consequences, right? So don't be a nanny state. Don't be a daddy nanny state to tell us what to do and not what not to do, right? So are we a danger to the public? No. As I said, the vaccination doesn't stop transmission or infection. We are just like them. If we are infected, right? They are just like us when they're infected. Right? Does it make sense to actually restrict us? So it has come to a point that in London, whether it's London, whether it's Europe, they come to the point that, oh, it doesn't make sense. We relax everything. So why are we still holding up? Just because we are seen as disobedient? It's not. It's just because we are concerned of our health. That's number one. Most people who are unvaxxed have pre-existing condition. My family is actually the rare one, right? They have serious allergies. We are not recognized. Doctors do not want to give them exemption, right? There are people who have chronic illnesses, they are concerned. Rightfully, they should be. Right? These are the people who will resist to be so silly to just show disobedience to the government just because they song. Right? They're more concerned about their health instead of want to go against the government. No, it's not. Nothing to do with that. So you are actually using this opportunity to say that I want to practice obedience. You're treating us like a dog. Don't you think so? Or you disobedient, I must use a stick against you. That is unscientific. If we want to run this country well, run this country in a fair manner, we must use science, not vindictiveness, right? Not abusing your power. That's my concern. So I hope the minister will actually take this into consideration. If there's no necessity to do that, and vaccination, they should realize by now, will not solve the economic problems. Right? They will not solve the hospital problem, the infection problems. They should learn from the UK, even France, the Europeans. France was all for the vaccination passport. Now they are relaxing. Right? Do away with it. You must have the confidence to deal with the virus in other forms, in other manner. You are paid to do your jobs. You are the most highly paid politician to make judgment, the right judgment for that. So whatever what I see as misjudgment, I can excuse that. But please be frank towards yourself. Look at the data. Does it make sense? No? And stop listening to people with vested interest, like Pfizer, right? Like Moderna. They have a vested interest because they want to sell vaccine. That's how they are rich. Start looking at people without vested interest with their research paper. Of course, not all, as I said, the scientific field is actually not in consensus what is going on. Huh? But you have to make judgment, a balanced judgment by reading the study and what is the best way forward. No? That's all I can say. No? But I still, say.
Is your family, for example, your daughter, is she facing any restrictions to school or work right now because of all this?
She has just completed her grade 12. In school, no restriction.
Okay.
Right. I didn't influence her. She herself made her decision not to vex. Right. She have read, she have done her own reading. Right. She have come to the conclusion she is low risk. Right. And there's doubts about this vaccination, these vaccines. She decided not to vex. Of course, luckily she's going overseas to study, not in Singapore, or else in Singapore you cannot.
Yeah.
You will be affected.
Yeah.
So she's not affected at all. And as a youngster, I will say that she take it in her own stride. Huh? She cannot go shopping with her friends and all that. She's okay. I think I'm proud of her because she knows what is important for her. Not the shopping, with friends. And the friends are quite understanding also. So for the gatherings, they will go out in the parks or go to house and gathering and all that. That's fine. It's not easy for youngsters for her to actually have such a mindset. I have known that a lot of parents were worried when their children want to get vaccinated because of peer pressure, of missing out with outings with their friends and all that. It's not easy. Right? So I think that's basically all. But as I said, we might disagree. No harm to be disagree. I think it's normal. As I said, we should not be a silent majority or silent minority. No. If there's a differences, there's something for us to disagree. We have to discuss and debate and to understand different perspective. No? Then we will form a better judgment. Whether we are in consensual or not, it doesn't matter, because it's your life, it's my life. I decide for myself, you decide for yourself. But most important thing is you must have an informed choice. That's all I advocate, informed choices.
What is
Right.
the best way forward for you and your family then, in this instance? If let's say the government doesn't repeal these very restrictive measures, do you see yourself coping well mental health wise? I know it's going to be huge toll on you. There's going to be a lot of struggles doing things here and there, but you are quite strong to stick to your principles and your beliefs about the vaccine. So moving forward in the long term, do you still see yourself not taking the vaccine and just remaining as status quo, or yeah?
Okay. First of all, when I look at this virus, and from the historical perspective, right, it will not last more than 3 years. That happened to Spanish flu, which doesn't have a vaccine. Right? It will die off from 3 years because that's nature. Then the nature will have it mutate to be less fatal, right? But more transmissive, maybe endemic, really endemic. That's what Omicron is moving towards. So I do not believe that PAP will be the sore thumb that's stuck out in the world. Right? When other places start to relax, to treat it as endemic, truly endemic, I do not believe PAP will stick to this forever. Right? That's number one.
If it does, what would you consider as a backup?
You will lose power. Right? Because, frankly speaking, all these measures doesn't affect those unvaxxed right now. We have chosen our path, and if we carry on to have this inconvenience to us, it will not affect us because we are still alive. Simple, right? Who does it affect? It affects the fully vaxxed but not boosted. And those boosted were required to take a second booster. They only maintain this BDS because they want people to take the booster jab. Because they want the booster jab to take another booster jab is there's another one. It's not about us anymore, unvaxxed. So if carriers like that, you will lose power. Will they do it? I don't think they are stupid. Right? There are certain, in Chinese we say there are certain level or a certain degree of tolerance. Right? Once you want me to take 2 jab, okay, I do it. You force me to take the booster jab, I gradually do it. And you want to continue to do that, be ready to take a rep. Right? That's why they are very careful to talk about the 4th booster jab, the 4th jab. And if there's no necessity for them to push anyone to take any more jab, there's no necessity for the measures. Right? Does that make sense, right? You know? Because unvaxxed will always unvaxxed, whether you have the measure. Right? So I don't think they're that stupid. Okay? I never underestimate them. Right? So it will not last. It shouldn't last beyond June, the way I see it. But if it does, then life still goes on for me. So if I'm not affected now,
so you're undeterred by this?
Yeah, I'm deterred. No? Well, as I said, not many people can be in my position to afford to do this, right? It's not easy.
Yeah.
right? Worst come to worst, I will just leave the country. Where a lot of more well-to-do PMAP, those are um, are more especially are leaving the country because of this. Right? They know it. So they are gradually complaining about this. On and on, you will read about this. They are just not talking about it openly. Imagine if all the world open and Singapore is not open, will they come to Singapore? These are well-to-do, very mobile talent. Why would they subject to this nonsense? Go in must step, out must step. If they can have some other places better. So I don't think PAP will have this. Right? The whole system, the whole dynamics of the world will have an influence of their own direction. Although they will gradually not to have this what do you call trace together. You know what? Trace together is not just trace together. It is a very powerful tool, right, of control, of monitoring, right? People who enjoy power will not relinquish their power that easily, right? But they will have to do it. Yeah, that's what I believe. If not, then I'm mobile also. I can go to UK. No more restriction. I believe Spain also no more restriction. Right? People who are mobile, who can afford it, are blessed with choices. Yeah.
Okay, right. Wow. I respect your dedication to what you are believing in, for sure. Is there anything else you would like to add before I conclude? And
well, I hope people do not politicize medicine. Right? Like what people do not see my defiance or so-called disobedience or my resistance to taking the vaccine as a disobedient act. It is not. It is based purely on my understanding, my belief of what is best for my own health, right? And what I believe that it is best for my people, for Singaporeans, right? Just as the same as PAP, I believe that they believe in vaccination as the best option for Singaporeans. We can differ in our thinking, but for me, it's never about politics. For them, I do not know. By the way they are doing, of course, is politics because they are running the country. Right? They have an agenda to fulfill, they have a KPI to fulfill. But sometimes you have to take a step back and ask yourself honestly, what if your premise is wrong? We are not sane. We are not God. We can be wrong. We have to pause, take a step back, think, what if I'm wrong? What is the worst consequences for an individual like me? I die, it's my choice. But for a politician who are running a country, what if you are wrong? A lot of people die with you. So the amount of responsibility comes upon the amount of power you have. So it's important to actually for people in power, more over than us, like people who are without power, to always reflect, what if you're wrong? The implication, the impact will be so much bigger. And do not try to justify or give excuse to every happening. right? Just like what we are talking about, the excess death. I do not know what is happening. Do not brush it aside by giving excuses. Go and do a analysis to find out what exactly is happening. Right? Don't speculate. Even experts will speculate. No, don't do that. Be scientific in what you do. Respect the data. Right? Do not just make use of the data. You must respect the data, what is trying to tell you. Because lives are at stake. Try to understand what is happening. Why are we having this ambulance call? Hospitals are packed. Funerals are packed. What is happening? Most people will be full. It's okay. 不知道不用紧嘛 they are not worried. But you as a leader of the country who are empowered to lead the country, you have the full responsibility to make good judgment. And you have the resources to find out what is happening. And make good of your resources and to make the good judgment. Right? That is all I can say. For me, I am an individual. Of course, there are people who believe in me, who follow what I say, right? But there is actually minority, right? They know exactly what they are looking at. They understand because they themselves have pre-existing condition. They are very worried, People who took the so-called the risk of not taking the vaccine, right? There are many of them who are being infected. They always call me or WhatsApp me or ask me what to do and all that, right? I am not a doctor, but I only can keep them calm. I consult other doctors, right? I think they appreciate it because they have an anxiety also. They need people to ensure them, right? Everything should be okay if we follow this. And they are very grateful when things turns out okay for them. In spite of the pressure, the mental pressure of being vax, people say they will die when you are infected, So when it comes to a level when I have accumulated certain cases like that, I'm more confident to tell people, don't be panicked, right? You have make the choice of not to vex, right? You must now think of a way to keep yourself safe even when you are infected. Early treatment, apply as soon as possible. It will reduce, it's not 100%, it might reduce your risk of serious illness, that's all. I appreciate people who come and thank me for all this trouble, but I told them, don't thank me because you took care of your health, your immune system, you took the supplement, and you choose to believe in me to take the early treatment, and you're okay right now. So, but for the government, they cannot do that because they set the direction, they set the agenda, they set the protocols. If they are not going to set the protocols, then a lot of people will be lost. The worst thing is they are telling people that this medicine cannot work. You know how many people will be affected? There's still people out there who believe what the MOH say, refuse to take the early treatment. Right? So I think what I say have less weight. What the minister says, what the ministry says, what the so-called experts say have more weight. But you must be very careful with what you say. If you are just want to write off all the early treatment thing, you are going to suffer. People are going to suffer. Right? Even though I throw the research paper done by the Chinese to them, they still say, oh, not enough data. What do you mean by not enough data? Is there enough data for the vaccine in the first place when you decide to take it? There's also not enough data. Long-term data, right? So I believe we must be honest to ourselves, honest to the stats, the data, right? And not to be blinded by agendas, not to be blinded by politicking, politicizing medicine. I don't believe that, right? That's what I say. Like people are telling me, oh, I don't trust the Chinese, that's why I don't take the Chinese medicine. I tell them, don't ever politicize medicine. It works, it works. It doesn't work, it doesn't work. By virtue of looking at the market, people are buying it, it works. That's the strongest indication, right? So that's my last call. Whatever they decide to do with me is their call, right? That's all. So I would say we must believe that everyone who come in public service have the goodwill and the good heart for public, what is good for the public, right? If they believe I'm just a troublemaker, so be it lah. You know, so be it. But people who have benefit from my talk and all that, they will know. I scream, who is talking nonsense? I always say, real truth will not be undermined or dictated by nonsense. Right? Real truth will not be undermined by or dictated by nonsense. It's just a matter of time that you'll be debunked and you'll be embarrassed. And I could say that I'm not going to be embarrassed for what I've said, what I've done. I do not know about them. Okay? Okay, I think, wow, okay, wow, very long-winded.
Very long chat, yeah. Thanks for coming on, Mr.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
I will stop the recording.